Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Tacoma Cyclist. Today I'm here by myself, just me without the Boogeyman, and that's because, well, Boogeyman doesn't usually do a lot of talking on these videos. I wanted to introduce you, though, to a first race of the season for the 2017 season. This is within the Washington State Bicycle Association region. So this is one of the very first road races of the 2017 season, actually the very first. And it's held here on Pacific Raceways. This is kind of unusual. They don't usually hold the first race out here at Pacific Raceways. But this is a great day for this was a great day for a beginner's clinic. So what you're seeing here is mixed Cat 4-5s, all adult male Cat 4-5s. They usually do mixed with females as well. But the women raced earlier, and they did have enough for separate Cat 4s and separate Cat 5 for women's, now that Cat 5 women is a thing. So this was all Cat 4-5 men, and actually well over 80 people showed up, so they split the field in two. You won't see Boogeyman on the track here because they split me and him up. They put him in one field, they put me in another. That makes me a little bit nervous, but hey, it is what it is. And he actually did very well for this race. He actually finished at the top of the pack in just at the back end of the sprint finish out of roughly 40 people, actually about 42 people. He came in well up there in the top portion of that. So that was nice. It was great. But what you're seeing here, you're seeing a lot of beginner racers, and you're seeing a lot of people dusting some wheels off after winter training season. So you see some questionable riding, but you also see some really good examples of good riding. In fact, there's a young man in this group here today that you'll see wearing a Rad Racing jersey who did a phenomenal job. Young man that's a recent transplant to the area here, and he's doing a great job in this, even as a young rider. But you can see that people are kind of feeling each other out here. There are a lot of new riders in this field, and you can see the line does a lot of crazy things. So obviously in races like this, you got to keep your wits about you. There is going to be a little bit of a nasty crash coming up here, and no, spoiler alert, I'm not involved in this crash this time. I didn't break any bones or any parts of my bike. But there were some broken bikes, lots of shards of carbon flying everywhere. So what you're seeing here is the fast back stretch of this race course, which is tends to be a little bit quick. It's got just an ever so slight downhill. People like to do some attacks to get away here, or at least move up in the line a little bit. Here we're not going incredibly fast, maybe mid-20s to upper 20s at this point, with a couple people maybe jumping off and going a little above 30 every once in a while. I think the maximum speed I recorded for the evening was 33.8, so it wasn't too fast of a race. But again, you can see some people kind of moving in and out of lines here. Some seasoned veterans doing that, as well as some newbies doing that, and that's, just kind of feeling each other out, checking the lines out on the course, because it's been 6 months since we've been on this course. Those cones are there for the first time. They don't usually have the cones on there, and I think the idea was during the beginning or the beginners series, they were using those cones to help mark where was a safe line and where was not a safe line, so people didn't wind up accidentally burying their wheels into sand and dirt. Yeah, and you can see what I'm talking about. A couple, splashy lines, people jumping around, maybe squeezing into spots that they shouldn't be, moving into one line, moving back into another line. It doesn't inspire confidence. So you see a lot of people are keeping pretty decent distance on wheels here. As we're coming around this little bend, there's actually a little bit of a headwind, but it's just enough that you want to form a small echelon coming around the left side here. So I jump in here, grab the back wheel of this guy, and hang in with a team member of mine here. And then we really just want to fight to stay in these positions. Again, the pack here is about 40 to 45 people. So my goal is to stay up in maybe the first 10 to 12 spots to keep the advantage of being still hidden from the wind, but at the same time not having to suffer from up and down, and also hopefully avoid some crashes, because usually the crashes happen further back in the line on group rides like this or bunch rides like this. Unless you're talking a sprint, then it's just God only knows where it's going to happen. But again, you can see some people kind of ducking in and out, maybe taking some lines that are questionable. Nothing bad here. But overall, like I said, it was a very good day. Even though we did have a pretty gnarly crash here, there were a lot of fields out here, a lot of folks that are new, and there actually weren't that many crashes given the fact that there's a lot of new people out on the course. So just keep an eye on this line here. The line shifts to the right. It's by design that it does that, but you can see there's 4 or 5 people wide here, and as the line tends to shift, it compresses a little bit because it shifts hard to the right, just past this white barrier. And this is something that kind of bites some newbies, people that aren't expecting it. One of our not new folks actually kind of got bounced into that because somebody pinched him out a little bit. Not the end of the world. He survived just fine. He kept the bike up, but it's definitely something that you want to watch out for. And then, of course, you get some folks that want to launch an attack off the right-hand side, taking the outside line into a pretty hard corner here, which is fine. So we're going to see what happens there. What that does is that causes this whole line to surge really hard. So keep an eye on that. As soon as you go through this turn here, which there were tons of brake squealing noises coming through these turns. That's one thing that absolutely bothered me. So many people braking through these turns. But people taking those turns really, really wide instead of doing a apex type turn where you go out, in, and then back out again. They would just stay really wide on the outside and then bomb it at the last second. So again, some just weird things. People that need to maybe learn how to take those corners. Of course, everybody starts somewhere learning how to do these corners, and that's just the way it is. So no big deal. I mean, this is generally a pretty safe place to learn that. Okay, so what we're watching here is as we come down this fast straight again, this is that relatively quick straight. Usually the speeds get well over 30 miles an hour through this part, and people tend to try to launch off the front, though it doesn't really work. And you'll see here in just a moment, one of the guys right in front of me here wants to try to squeeze in. So he's signaling to his team member, hey, I'm coming over on your left-hand side here. And he comes up here in just a moment, and you can see he's getting pinched out a little bit. Passes one of my team members, still tries to stay squeezed into that tight line, and he alerts his team member up here on the left in just a second by touching him on the hip. Well, when he touches him on the hip, it was kind of an alarm, and for some reason, bam, just completely unexpected. And that took about 6 people out. So here it is in slow motion, and if you actually look really carefully at his front wheel, after he gets tapped on the hip, he looks over to the right as though he's going to follow, and then you can just barely see his wheel touch the wheel of the person in front of him, and it's that point that you see him lean over a little bit. I think what happened is it pushed his front wheel. Instead of being able to react and move the opposite direction, it pushed the front wheel out from underneath of him, and then he went over. Just a prediction. I mean, just an observation. I'm not trying to find anybody at fault here, and I'd really definitely I don't want people in the comments to pick on anybody. Stuff like this happens in races. You're not going to come out looking awesome by telling us all how bad somebody was for doing something like that. Hey, everybody does stuff like that. It's not ideal, but it does occasionally happen, and it's the nature of racing. So let's keep the comments positive and polite about that. Yeah, stuff happens, and like I said, if you look here again real carefully, you can see what's happening. He just barely brushes that wheel with his, and that's all it takes. We're in real close proximity there, so he just ever so slightly overlapped. Again, he's a good rider, a good guy, so it's not like it was something stupid. It's just something that happened. As far as myself, I'm not exactly sure how I got around that. You can see I didn't actually move that much there to get around that wreck. I just I almost saw it playing out in slow motion in front of me. As it started happening, it seemed like it slowed down, and I could see what was going on. And my thought process was, I just need to keep the bike moving forward. If I keep the bike moving forward, I'll make it through this. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I ever so slightly moved to the left. I was trying to be aware of the fact that if I moved too hard to the left, I was probably going to take somebody behind me down or beside me down, and I didn't want to do that either. So just the bare essentials to move through there. That wall was pretty close by, so escaping to the right was not an option. So you can see coming through here now, everybody's kind of a little bit wigged out. Maybe some of the folks a little bit further up didn't see the wreck. But again, this field's 40 people strong, so there's only maybe 15 people up here. The rest of the field was behind that wreck. And there's that young man I was telling you about. That's a very strong rider. You can see he's got a great posture. Yeah, look at that good arrow position there. He knows what he's doing. So yeah, great. I mean, things started to kind of kick right back up again. People were a little bit more cautious, but every once in a while you'd still see some strange moves taking place. Okay, so I'm actually going to keep this video relatively short here and wrap it up. But again, the biggest takeaway from this is beginner's night racing, and overall it actually went pretty well. We had over 84, 85 people show up for the first race of the season. About half of them were beginners, which is really encouraging to see that the sport is thriving pretty well here. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you all for stopping by and checking out the video, and yeah, I hope everybody that was in that wreck recovers well. Thanks. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.